Good morning, everyone, and especially to our teacher. Good morning, sir. And for today, I'll be your second reporter. I am Jocelyn E. Garzola, and I will continue the discussion on the Republic Act 8749, which is known as the Philippine Clean Air Act. So now let's proceed to Section 7. Section 7, Integrated Air Quality Improvement Framework. So the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, together with participating organizations like our local government units, the non-government organizations, people's organizations, the ACA team, and even organizations coming from the private sector shall formulate and implement the integrated air quality improvement framework for a comprehensive air pollution management and control program. So, meaning the public and the private sectors must effectively work hand in hand, no? From crafting or planning its framework, from designing its framework, and of course, up to its implementation. Because we cannot deny the fact that it is everyone's obligation na we are experiencing the increasing carbon emission in our environment, and also this shall be adopted or established after the effectivity of this act. So after 6 months. So that's for section 7. So at this point, we will delve in what is really the integrated air quality improvement framework. So this framework shall be adopted as the official blueprint with which all government agencies must comply with to attain and maintain ambient air quality standards. So our main goal for this framework is to attain and maintain ambient air quality standards. So later on, we will know what are those quality standards. Okay, if we talk about official blueprint, meaning this is really a plan as to how it is expected to work. Or there are a set of goals, there are a set of objectives. What would be the time allotted for this? What would be the place and how much would this project cost? Okay, so this blueprint serve as a guide for a set of objectives. So the framework shall be prescribe the emission reduction goals using permissible standards. So these are standards which are allowed. Control strategies and control measures is undertaken within a specified time period. So you can really tell or see that there is really a time allotted. And when we talk about control strategies and measures, there is really measurement in order to check is there really a progress, or how much, or how was the progress, or is there a need for a modification or any changes, because everything is subject to any event that would happen or that is intended for that project. Next, including cost-effective use of economic incentive. Yes, we need to effectively use our cost because yes, there's really, or it always entails cost when it comes to the budget. Next, management strategies, collective action. So the public and the private sector must work hand in hand together with the designated department, let's say, of the government, let's say the DENR of a local government unit. So they should work hand in hand. And environmental education and information. Yes, no, di ba we experience information drives or symposiums coming from our school. There are departments that will go to our school to tell uh, related to our environment, and they also do or have this environmental campaigns in the different platforms. And yes, we can also see coming from our televisions, our radio. That's every day. We have the Republic Act 8749. There is a situation, no? They are there in one neighborhood. So yes, so that is the integrated air quality improvement framework. So now let's proceed to section 8. We have the air quality control action plan. So the department shall, with public participation, formulate and implement an air quality control plan. So this are or the following are the minimum standards that an action plan must possess or should have. No? So letter A, we have include enforceable emission limitations and other control measures. So they need to establish, no, they need to construct limitations as to the carbon emission, like only intended for this is maulang. Okay, letter B, they need to provide for the establishment and operation of appropriate devices, methods, system, and procedures necessary to monitor, comply, and analyze data on ambient air quality. So yes, since we are doing this kind of project, this is an environmental project, no, we really need devices. How are we going to do? We have the methods. What are our controlling methods? The system that we need to take, no? And because we are doing this, so there is really a need for a monitoring, no? To tell how was the progress, no? Is this working or not? Is this effective or not? Is this efficient or not? So yes, we need to establish necessary. So meaning action plan is really necessary. Okay, so that's it, and we will proceed to letter C. Letter C, include a program to provide for the following. So we have one, enforcement of the measures described in subparagraph A. Okay, so what would be the emission limitations and other control measures? So what would be the set emission or carbon emission in this kind of industry? Let's say the manufacturing industry. So we need to establish, no? I mean, the government, the department should establish, and other control measures. So what would be the guidelines, no? Set of standards that they need to follow. Next, number two, regulation of the modification. Yes, they need to regulate because everything is subject to changes because it is really inevitable. No, there are circumstances that really happen, no, beyond our plan or what's our plan for that, and construction of any stationary source within the areas covered by the plan. So there are many, no, stationary sources which are really having, let's say, the manufacturing industry, no, the factories, the refineries, the boilers, and other power plants. They really emit, no, great variety of pollutants. So they need, no, they need to follow guidelines set by the DENR and standards that they need to like a certain level of pollution in this. So it should be regulated, well regulated. Next, letter D, contain adequate provisions consistent with the provisions of this act, prohibiting any source or other type of emission activity within the country from emitting any air pollutant. So this is not only limited, no, in this provision, but what are those other provisions which is in line with the goal or objective of this act? So anything that prohibits any source of other type of emission activity. That's four. And later on, we will proceed to letter E. Letter E, include control strategies and control measures to be undertaken within a specified time period. Yes, we need to have a set of time for this kind of for step one. Okay, for step two, especially with the implementation. No? It next, including cost-effective use of economic incentives. Yes, there are such things where these incentives serve as motivation to the people or to the public in order to achieve the goal. Let's say, for example, a certain industry, like they're part of the airshed. Later, we will get to know what our airsheds are. Let's say that industry, they were able to lower down their percentage of carbon emissions. So they will be given incentives as well. So the main goal of giving incentives is to encourage the people or the public to help the department to lower it down because everyone will benefit from this. So motivations, learning incentives, or to encourage them. Next, management strategies. Yes, no, there should be um, techniques. What would be and how are they going to do the implementation? Next, collective action. So should work hand in hand, public and private, and environmental education and information. Yes, no, we need to educate to let the people aware with the air situation that we have. Let's say that is part of the scope and there are people in it. No, we need to say or tell them that this is the air quality that we have in this scope or that air shed. No, so that's it for letter E. Next, F, designate air shed. So later on, I'll just explain to that. Letter G, all other measures necessary for the effective control and abate, abatement of air pollution. So this is only the minimum requirements of the action plan, and it is way much better if it is really a need, no, to have other things to add up to uh, the action plan in order to control the air quality that we have. So yes, they as long as it is a need, no, and it is way better. So that's it for the air quality control action plan. And now let's proceed to section 9. We have airsheds. So the designation of airsheds shall be on the basis of, but not limited to, areas with similar climate, meteorology, and topology. So these are areas who share the same climate. Yeah, like we are part of the tropical climate, diba? So they share the same meteorology, so meaning the phenomena on the atmosphere. So what is, or the same weather. Okay. Next we have the topology. So this is the study of a certain place. So if they share the same uh, meteorology and topology, so that would be the basis of putting up an airshed. Next, yes, which affect the interchange and diffusion of pollutants in the atmosphere. So it is really, it is really a need not to know what is or what are the basis of putting up airsheds or areas which share common interests or face similar development programs. So we have areas which are we have commercial areas, newly developed areas. So if these areas share the same interest as well, so they need to have a certain, like the government will set this would be the appropriate percentage. So we need to lower it down. So there is really um, setting up of standards, or do we need to set up such percentage as well? So a system of planning and coordination should be established, and a common action plan should be formulated for each airshed. So if this certain scope, no, share the same, let's say, interest, meteorology, share the same climate, so they should have common action plan as well. So in order in order to have an effective application of this project or this action plan when it comes to putting up airsheds. So a governing board is hereby created. So here and after referred to as the board. The board shall be headed by the Secretary of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources as its chairman. So the members shall be are as follows. So number one, we have the provincial governors from areas belonging to the airshed. Yes, we know. Number two, we have the city or municipal mayors from areas belonging to the airshed. Number three, a representative from each concerned government agency. So we can also say that the Department of Trade and Industry, yes, because we have this manufacturing industry which really contributes on when it comes to factories, no, which really contributes on the carbon emission in our atmosphere. Next, we have the representatives from the people's organization. Yes, these are people who really fight for the wellness of our environment. Next, we have the representatives from non-government organizations, and lastly, representatives from the private sector. So since they are part of the board, of course, it always entails responsibility. So they need to function, of course, in order to achieve the reduction of our carbon emissions. So number one, they need to formulate policies, so formulation of policies. So they need to craft guidelines. Next, preparation of a common action plan. So it depends on the guidelines. So they will base their action plan according to the policies they've already set and depending on the need. Next, coordination of functions among its members. So yes, there's really a need for a coordination because uh, like we need this, we need those. So we need to help each other in order to effectively function. And lastly, submission and publication of an annual air quality status report for each airshed. Yes, no, if it's really a need that we need to publicize what was the progress. So since there is an airshed and that certain area, so we need to submit a report or an assessment or an evaluation. What is the air quality status? Because as people get to be aware, they really expect what would be the outcome of putting up in that certain airshed. Because people, so since they get to know, they're aware, so they will also um, do actions that would contribute in the reduction of the carbon emission. So since they already have the publication, so it's really vital and it's really a need that we need to inform the public as well as to how was the progress. And this really delights on the people. Section 10, Management of Non-Attainment Areas. So the department shall designate areas where specific pollutants have already exceeded ambient standards as non-attainment areas. So there are areas that di na jud matabang, okay? So there are areas na grabe na jud ang air pollutant that already exists in that certain area. So they will really limit na. So the department shall prepare and implement a program that will prohibit new sources of exceeded air pollutants without a corresponding reduction in existing sources. Yes, they will really implement and prepare program. So if there is a new proposal that they will construct a manufacturing site or a plant on that site, and so since now the air pollutant already exceeded, they will not allow it. No, they will not allow it as long as the source is already reduced. They can allow it, but so since non-attainment areas pa ni, so grabe na jud, na-exceed na jud ang level of percentage. So they will not allow it. So that's for that. So in addition, in coordination with other appropriate government agencies, the local government units shall prepare and implement a program and other measures, including relocation. So since that certain area there are residents living in it, and since it is very harmful, now the air quality is very harmful to the health of the residents, so they need to have a relocation project. So whenever necessary to protect the health and welfare, yes. So we need to prioritize the health of the residents living in that area or that part of that certain airshed. And for those designated as non-attainment areas, the department and other participating organizations may revise the designation of such areas and expand its coverage to cover larger areas depending on the condition of the areas. Yes, to the everything is subject to changes and it depends upon the event. So since daily naman jud makaya, since it is part of the non-attainment areas, taas na jud, it exceeded the level of air quality. So they needed to revise, modify, and expand its coverage in order to have a larger coverage, in order to have. So now let's proceed to section 11, air quality control techniques. So these are the methods, what would be the best uh, techniques that we need to take, the action that we need to take. So the department or the head, through the research and development program and using consultation with the appropriate advisory committees, the government agencies and local government units shall issue and from time to time revise information on air pollution control techniques. So such information shall include. So yes, no, there is, everything is subject to changes because change is constant and we need to revise depending or with what is appropriate to the need. Okay, so number one, the best available technique and alternative methods of prevention, management, and control air pollution. So, what would be the latest technology in order for us to assess the quality of air we have? What would be the alternative methods of prevention? So, we do information read to the people. We do such things that would help the people not to burn plastics. So what would be the management control of air pollution? So these are one of the techniques that we need to take. So now let's proceed to number two. Best available technology economically achievable, which shall refer to the technological basis standards for emission limits applicable to existing direct industrial emitters of non-conventional toxic pollutants. So they will use mga devices to tell that this certain product already exceeded the certain toxic pollutant. So instead of using mga fuels like petroleum, so let's proceed to number three, alternative fuels, processes and operating methods which will result in the elimination of significant reduction of emission. So there were cases, so instead of using petroleum, they will use renewable sources like they produce less pollutants and it's not that harmful. Now you have lesser pollution. So let's say biodiesel. So it is a renewable fuel. So they will use as well um, alternative fuels like vegetable and waste derived oils. So instead of using petroleum because it contributes a higher level of air pollution. So we will use mga renewable sources or alternative fuels. Section 12, we have ambient air quality guideline values and standards. So the department, in coordination with other concerned agencies, shall review and or revise and publish annually a list of hazardous air pollutants with corresponding ambient guideline values and or standard necessary to protect public health and safety and its general welfare. Of course, no, we already have a set of values or percentage on a certain air pollutant, and since if ever no, it's very vital and it's a need to publish it to the public for them to be well aware. That's it for. Will not dig deep on that na. I'll just let you say it. Okay. So we have As follows, we have for National Ambient Air Quality Guideline for criteria pollutant. So it is in accordance with its a certain pollutant. We can see there is a short term and there are as well long term. So it depends upon the time. Let's say for short term, it's only for 24 hours, and when it comes to long term, it's for a year for pollutants from industrial sources or operations. So this is coming from the industrial sources. So we have the ammonia, the carbon distillate, and so on and so forth. So we can see that we can have its averaging time, its ppm, and so on and so forth. So okay, the basis in setting up the ambient air quality standard guideline values and standards shall reflect, among others, the latest scientific knowledge, including information on one. Yes, uh, everything is subject to changes in accordance with the new knowledge. The research and development is very vital. No, our scientists. So variable factors, including atmospheric conditions, which of themselves or in combination with other factors, may alter the effects of public health or welfare of such air pollutants. Yes, we need to know what would be the effect if, let's say, because of that certain weather, so it became or it really affects the public health. Next, the other types of air pollutants which may interact with such pollutant to produce an adverse effect on public health or welfare. So there are cases that a certain air pollutant, two types, they merge into one and it became more risky on the health of the public or the general welfare. So we can tell that it's really a need to have the latest scientific knowledge on everything because we're talking about uh, life in here. We're talking about health. Okay. And that's four. And let's have the number three. And lastly, the kind and extent of an identifiable of all identifiable effects on public health or welfare which may be expected from the presence of such pollutants in the ambient air in varying quantities. Yes, no, it really depends. And if that certain kind of air pollutant have a great extent of effect to the people, that's why we can tell that latest scientific knowledge is very vital because we need our guideline values to be consistent with the new knowledge or because of the new research that our researchers uh, find out or found out. So it should be consistent. We need to be in line with the new scientific knowledge because everything changed, no? And we're talking about life in here. We are talking about the health of the people, the health of the public, and we need to take part effort, because this is life. Life is a gift, and that would be the end of my report on section 12. Thank you for listening.